Well, this is new. NBC News now reporting that Trump could announce his vice presidential pick as early as this week, possibly ahead of Thursday's CNN presidential debate. That's less than 48 hours. With one source saying, quote, he would like the opportunity to throw a curveball to distract Biden before they meet. In addition, Trump campaign senior advisor Chris LaCivita tweeting this out today, quote, heading to West Palm. Question is, who is with me? And fueling more speculation, a Trump campaign spokesperson quote tweeting it saying, can't wait, exciting stuff. I think it's all a head fake, but a brilliant one at that. All right, well, potential Trump vice presidential pick, Dr. Ben Carson, joins me now. Dr. Carson, I'm thrilled to have you here. All the time when I'm on social media, I hear, why haven't you spoken to Dr. Carson yet? He's our favorite. There's a lot of love for you out there. And I'm curious, if you were selected as vice president, you've worked with Trump for 4 years as HUD secretary. Is that a job you think you'd like, VP?
Well, first of all, thank you, Kaylee, for having me. It's always good to be with you. The vice presidential position is a very important position, no question about that, and can be used in a very effective way. And there are a lot of people on the Republican side who would make wonderful vice presidents. You need to have somebody who thinks out of the box, who's original in the way that they do things, and someone who is very supportive of the policies of the president. And the other side doesn't have that, obviously. And they don't have very many choices. And it's much more important on that side because Biden is very old. Physiologically, he's a lot older than 81. Physiologically, Trump is a lot younger than 78. So there's much greater chance that something will happen to Biden and that they don't have a good replacement for him. So what we really need to concentrate on the Republican side, however, is making sure that we get Trump into office because they've already thrown everything, including the kitchen sink at him, trying to get him out. They don't want to run against him. They don't want to run against his policies. You know, they try to gag him. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing that's going on. But as I've told him, if God wants him in that position, they can't stop him.
That is wise and brilliant advice. You know, you'll be with Trump tomorrow. This was announced by the campaign today. It's called the Black American Business Leaders Barbershop Roundtable. It'll be in Atlanta. You'll be there with President Trump ahead of the debate. What will we see at this roundtable?
Well, hopefully we will see people who are willing to talk about the things that are good for their community. And in the previous administration, when President Trump was in office, a lot of great things were done for the black community. And there were a number of rallies at the White House with young black people, incredibly enthusiastic. You didn't see a whole lot about that in the media, but I was there. And I saw the enthusiasm. It has only grown since that time. And we'll be talking about the things that actually work, not only for the black community, but for all the communities. One of the things that you might notice about President Trump is that he believes that a rising tide lifts all boats. He's not going to go around playing identity politics and pitting one group against the other. He wants to work for America. And I think all Americans during his administration saw their tides rising. They saw, the ability to buy homes increase significantly. The American dream increased significantly. No one has an American dream anymore. It's an American nightmare. And you can see the importance of elections. It's so critical, not only to get him in office, but to down the line.
What you said is just so important because I remember when I was speaking with President Trump ahead of the second debate that he did, I mentioned you should mention to voters that you will lose about $6,500 in income if Biden wins. They've actually lost way more than that. And you compare that to Trump and the gains the black community was making, median income going up by 8% for the black community. Trump needs to bring this up on the debate stage.
And I hope he will talk about the things that he's done and compare those to the things that have happened since he's left office. Compare what's happened with energy, becoming energy independent because we used the gift that we have of fossil fuels while at the same time having the cleanest air and water that we've ever had. Using that to bolster the economic foundation. And that worked for people. And explaining to people how that works. And explaining to people how government intervention, instead of allowing the market forces to work, leads to something that we have now, which is not something very good.
Dr. Carson, just a yes or no answer. Will you be at the debate or the debate watch party, one of the two, on Thursday?
Yes, I'll be there.
Okay, because Trump said his VP pick will be at the debate, so I had to ask. All right, Dr. Carson, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.